Everybody get your Bibles out. And we're going to study here in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter number 3. Everybody get your Bibles open this evening. Ecclesiastes, chapter number 3. Amen. Now, I'm sorry, 2. We got down to verse number 13, I believe it is, somewhere along in there. And so tonight, we'll start there about verse 13, and we'll finish out this chapter tonight. And I'm going to say a few things about it. I believe it'll be a blessing to you. You ought to be getting smarter now studying this, for it's a wisdom book. It's a wisdom book. If you want wisdom, you want your kids to be smart, have them here on Wednesday night, and we'll be smarter. That's what God put this stuff in the Bible for. So Solomon he's tried everything. He's come to the conclusion that everything is vanity and vexation of spirit, without an eternity, without God, without a heaven, without something to look forward to. You know, a wise man dies as a fool dies. We'll read that tonight. It's just a waste. So, verse 12, he said, what can a man do that comes after me, that which already been done? That means he tried it all. He done everything. Many people tonight in the world are trying everything they can to try to be happy. And that's what people want. They want to be happy. So they try drugs. They try alcohol. They try, we say drugs and alcohol, but alcohol is a drug, but you know what I mean. They try this, they try that, and they try the other, just try to be happy. I guess all of you has heard on the news about that actor that played in that homosexual movie that died yesterday evening, the Brokeback Mountain guy, 28 years old. They found him dead in his apartment with pills laying all around him. You know what that proves? That proves what we've been studying on Wednesday night is still true today. There's no peace and no happiness. I mean, why would he have to have pills? Why would he have to have pills? 28 years old in perfect health. You know why? Because there's something in the human heart that's not satisfied with money, with popularity. I mean, he lived in like a penthouse in New York City. He had enough money to do anything he wanted. I mean, he's starring in the Batman movie coming out pretty soon, I reckon, if they've done made it. And all of that. Why would he just say, I want drugs? Because there's something in here not satisfied. Why is Britney Spears on drugs? Because money, why is them little Olsen girls get messed up like that? They're worth over $100 million. Them little twin girls. When they were 20 years old, they were worth $100 million. But what Solomon said was, you can try it all, folly, pleasure, and all is vanity. All is vanity. And I hate to tell you that, but that's just the way it is. Now let's look tonight at verse 14. The wise man's eyes are in his head. Well, I reckon they are. I don't know where else it would be. But the fool walketh in darkness. And I guess what that's saying is, a wise man pays attention. His eyes are open, but a fool just walks right on in the dark. The difference between a wise man and a fool is walking outside on a cold, dark night or walking in broad daylight. You'll trip over everything out there in the darkness. And that's the difference between a wise man and a fool. Look at verse 14. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness. And I myself perceived also that one event happeneth to them all. Isn't that something? You know what Solomon was saying? It don't matter how smart you are. It don't matter how educated you are. It don't matter how great you are. The same thing is going to happen to you as happens to a fool. You know what? You're going to die. A wise man dies like a fool dies. In the hospital, or in the bed, with tubes running down him, or in agony. They all die the same. Isn't that something? The richest man on earth is going to die just like the poorest man on earth. He might have a little more money to buy a little more time or a little more drugs, but one event happeneth to them all. You know, that's something. That's something to think about. You have tubes in you, you have IVs in you, medicine. The same, you die as a fool dies. Look at verse 15. Then said I in my heart, as it happeneth to the fool, so it happeneth to me. And why was I then more wise? Then I said in my heart, that this also is vanity. You know what he's saying there? He's saying, if I'm going to wind up swiveled up in a bed, in a fetal position, in agony, dying, and a man that never hit a lick at a snake and ain't got no education and everything is going to die the same way, what good is it me? What good has my wisdom done me? That's a good question, isn't it? That's a good question. You know, people talk about wisdom, get training, get knowledge, go back to school, get this degree, get that degree. You know what? You're going to die just like a fool die. Yeah, we all are. I'm not saying it's bad to have it. I mean, it's okay to get knowledge, get you a good job. But when it comes right down to it, you're going to die just like a poor man. An educated man's going to die just like an uneducated man. I got to thinking about that. And I thought, if that statement's true, and of course I had no doubt in my mind, and I thought, why was I then more wise? And I got to thinking, who would I really want to be like in this world? I've done some traveling. And you've heard me tell about my travel. I've been around. Because of the work that I'm in, and especially me preaching at so many churches, I've really got to see a lot, and go a lot, and meet a lot of people. And y'all have heard the Pony Express message where I tell some stories about how I've been treated good and how I've been treated not so good. And I mean, I've eaten in restaurants that were just an old greasy spoon. I mean, the food about you couldn't hardly swallow it down. And I'd eat a pack of cheese crackers and drink for supper. And then I'd sit down up in Connecticut with a table about as long as from here to that wall, seriously, with about 20 people, and them have shrimp and all kinds of clam strips and everything fresh right out of all you could eat like that. I mean, first class, classy meal. And, you know, I've been in some nice restaurants. They took me to a restaurant in Pensacola, Florida one time, this man did. And him and his wife, they took me up to this place, and it was way up overlooking the Pensacola Bay. And it was like, oh my goodness, it was like, I don't know how much money it was per person. They had this guy coming around on a violin, you know, and white tablecloth. Really, I looked at him like, you're the stupidest looking thing I ever seen. I mean, I would hate to have a job like that. Walking around in people's face. Honestly, I couldn't keep a straight face. But you know, people think that's supposedly romantic or whatever. I missed it. I'm a real practical thinking person, you know, and I just think, come on, man, get out of here. Get that thing out of here. It was funny to me. But, you know, and I've seen them play. And you know what? I don't know. I know people. I met some people in Michigan, and they run a convenience store right on the side of Interstate 75, I think, going right up through Flint, Michigan. And this man was in his probably mid-30s, and honestly, they were making some money. And they had about 4 kids. Their kids had everything. They had jet skis, they don't have jet skis. They probably have snowmobiles. They had 4-wheel drive trucks, Jeeps. They had money in the bank. I mean, when I'd go up there to preach, they'd always have me over one night, and he'd order about 8 big pizzas, and we'd sit there and eat pizza. And I'd get up in the morning, and my shoe would be like that, and I looked, and there was a $100 bill in my shoe, like that. They treated me nice. And that was a long time ago. And I began to think, but you know what? That man laid awake at night like to worried himself to death about this deal and that deal, and is he going to be able to compete, and taxes they're going to do, and payments this and payments that. And his wife, there's always saying, well, you know what this is going to do, and the stock going down, and this going to, and all that. And he literally was a nervous wreck trying to keep everything going and everything. And you know something else? I don't just travel around. I figure, my mom always said that traveling is one of the best educations you can get. So I figured if I'm going to travel all the time, I'm going to watch and see what I can learn. And I've been up in Canada preaching, and down in Haiti, and down in other countries, over in Germany, and Ireland, and all over the United States. And I've been, to Hollywood and Grand Canyon, and New York City, and downtown Dallas, and everything. And I'm always watching. I watch, okay, what's so great about this? I want to see it. And I met people up in Spruce Pine. Honest to the Lord. And they had people that were had gray hair, maybe in their early 60s. and they had a gleam in their eye. And they had a big house on a hill, and everything was paid for, and money in the bank, and had 3 or 4 kids, and they all lived right down the road here. And and all the kids and grandkids would come together for Sunday dinner, and they'd put out, fried chicken and biscuits and corn on the cob and all that, and everybody would just and they had just a shine. Their face would just shine, and neither one of them went to high school, graduated from high school. And they had, their kids grew up, they were all saved, going to heaven when they die. They don't even have to lock their doors. And stuff like that, I started thinking, now wait a minute here. The world thinks it's New York City, it's hot. And there's people up there, I'd rather have what they have up there. They don't live in a congested area. They don't have somebody robbing you when you stop to get gas. They don't have, I don't mean to sound bad, but all the illegal people and stuff ain't come in on them and invaded their. They probably have by now, but they hadn't then. And it wasn't a drug-infested, crime-ridden neighborhood. No, and boy, I thought, you know what? They're the ones that's got it made. I'd rather have their life anytime than out there beating yourself to death in a big city. You know what? I know Danny Tucker, a friend of mine from Marion, he was going to New York City to be a missionary. This nearly 20 years ago. And they got up there and they had to pay $30 to park a car. To park a car, brother. And toll bridges back and forth every way, both ways, and take you an hour to get from here to McDonald's. And then when you do, you're afraid somebody's going to nat and cut your throat as soon as you get out of the car. I don't see what's so great about living in New York City. Amen? Now, I wouldn't, my girls want to go, I took them up there. We had Corey's 10th birthday party on top of Empire State Building. I thought, I'd like to visit there, but man, you couldn't give me that place. Lord have mercy. What would you do in New York City if you owned it? It's something, I'm going to tell you something awful is going to happen there one of these days. I remember the first time I seen New York City, I said, there ain't no way this is going to work. That's what I thought. There's places where there's 75,000 people per square mile. That's twice as many people as there is in McDowell County in a square mile. You can't have that. Something bad did happen up there on 9/11. And something else is going to happen too. I don't know what it is, but you can't cram that many people together and something awful not happen. And I remember going up to Virginia, preaching up in Marion, Virginia, and old Harvey Mull. Harvey Mull laid in the bed. I don't know what's wrong with him, but he's all drawed up like this, and he laid in the bed, and his head was like that all the time. And he laid there and listened to preaching tapes all day, and his mama cooked. And I remember stepping up on them like wooden steps, going into his house, and all he talked about was Brother Mays Jackson, and his preaching that he'd listened to, and stuff like that. And I'm telling you, I felt a peace in that home that I never felt in Michigan, where the guy had the snowmobiles and all that. It was up there, it felt like everything's just like this all the time. Going here, going there, can't hear, stop here, horns blowing. Man, there was some kind of peace that some of those Christians have up in where everything's took care of, and they walk with God, and they read their Bibles laying right there. Solomon said, what good is it that I was wise? So I come to this conclusion. The best thing in this world, somebody ain't going to like this, but the best thing in this world is a saved, ignorant person. Because with much wisdom comes a lot of grief, man. The more you know, the more they are to worry about. Please don't think I'm bragging on being ignorant. I'm just saying that you're better off to live up to somewhere and not even know about all this filth and trash in the world and be saved and live right with God. You get the best of both worlds that way. The best thing in the world is a saved, common person that walks with God and lives right, and their family's right. That's the best life there is. And then they die a peaceful death and go on to glory forever and ever and ever. You can't beat that. You cannot beat that. You live in the middle of New York City. Man, I don't know why in the world anybody would want to live in a place like that. Living in New York City would be like, I know some of you young people think, oh, that would be so exciting. Listen, that traffic, I don't even like the traffic in Charlotte. And brother, you could lose Charlotte. You could lose Charlotte in New York City. Couldn't even find it. I'm telling you, brother, and crime. When I was in California, there's these guys hanging around red lights. And when you stop at a red light, they come out and start spraying your windshield and wiping it like that. Anybody ever had that happen to you? And then if you don't give them money, man, they'll bust your windows out. You ought to run over them, but not kill them, you know. Really, that's crazy. That's crazy. People scared to death. They'll literally come and beat your window in and say, "You got to pay me. You got to pay me. You got to pay me." I say, "I don't owe you nothing, dude. I didn't ask you to wash my windows." But them people's crazy. I've seen them. I've seen big guys walking down the street in mini skirts with makeup on. And I mean, that about makes you sick. But when they walk up to you and say, "Would you like a date?" that really gets you. That really. And we haven't talked to us like that. I don't know whether it was a man or a woman, what it was. They picked up something out there in California, and the police didn't know what jail to put it in. They didn't know what jail to put it in. Used to be, or half one. Where would you put somebody like that? Men's, women, or jail? Men's prison? What there was to start with? Well, that wouldn't, I don't know if that'd be right or not, because if they used to be a man, but now they're a woman, and you put them in the men's, then the other men would like the woman being in there. I'm telling you, man, you don't think this world's messed up? Really? Okay, let's move along here. Moving along in our study. Lord have mercy. Well, whatever. They said, they was bragging on them WNBA players, and they said, "Man, that woman can dunk a basketball." And I said, "But she used to be a man." But anyway, one event happened to them all. He said, why was I then more wise? What good does all this do me if we're all going to die anyway? Verse 16, "For there is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fools forever." Think about that. Did you know most people in this world, the majority of people in this world, when they die, nobody ever even misses them or cares? You're unusual if anybody remembers you past a year other than your immediate family and close friends. The truth is tonight, we think we're so important. The truth is tonight, if you or me, either one, died tonight, 99.999% of this world would never even know we've even been here. And that's a sad thing. You think you're so important. You ain't, brother. We're like ants traveling across this old globe, just dying like that. Just dying like that. And that's why he said it's vanity. It's vanity. I mean, it said there is no remembrance of the wise man. The TV resurrects them all the time. It'll show there's John Lennon, there's John Lennon, there's John Lennon, to make you think he's still out. He ain't. If it wasn't for TV and magazines and stuff like that, you wouldn't. I mean, you didn't get up this morning and say, "I wonder what John Lennon's favorite food was." You don't even think about stuff like that. You don't that stuff like that. You don't care. They're gone, brother. That generation's gone. All we think about is right now. The next generation won't even remember us. Now, so what you need to do, everybody in here, you need to make up your mind that you're going to leave some kind of footprint on this earth for the Lord Jesus Christ. Do something that when you're dead and gone, people will say, "I remember they witnessed to me, they cared about me, they prayed for me, they fasted, they gave money, they were faithful to church." Leave one footprint for Jesus Christ. I'm telling you, when I die, I mean, a lot of people like me, a lot of people don't like me, but I want to say I left a footprint. The world knows I've been here, and I want to leave something behind that was some kind of testimony for the Lord. Other than that, your life's a waste. It really is. Your life is wasted unless you do something for Jesus. What good does it do? You say, "Well, they discovered a cure for this." Well, they're all going to die anyway. I don't care what you discover a cure for. They're going to die. Something's going to kill you. All these great medical advancements, most of it just prolongs your suffering and costs you more. I mean, I'm glad for them, and I thank God for medicine, but everybody's going to die anyway. This is a real pessimistic way to look at stuff, isn't it? But it's a reality. It's reality. Somebody want to say something?
Just thinking, I heard somebody say probably 95%
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And I know preachers, I know young preachers and stuff, they go out and say, Dr. Hiles, Dr. Jack Hiles, and I love Jack Hiles. I still listen to him preach. He's one of the greatest men. But you know, I'll guarantee you'd go out here in Morganton Saturday night and give out tracts, stop 50 people and say, you ever heard of Jack Hiles? And 45 of them say no. We haven't made no impact on this world like we think we have. And we get in our little circle of friends, we think everybody knows the great so-and-so. No, they don't neither. I mean, like he said, there's more people heard Billy Graham's voice than any man who's ever lived on this planet. His voice has been heard by more people than any person that's ever lived. And like he said, probably most people never even know who he is. Anybody else? Want to say something? All right. How dieth the wise man? As the fool. Look at verse 17. Therefore I hated life. Well, that's a blessing, ain't it? I hated life. Have you ever felt like that? I just hate life. Come on now, be honest. Have you? I have. Yeah. And you will again before it's over with, probably. And I hated life because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me. For all his vanity and vexation of spirit. Yea, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. Now think about that for a minute. He said, I hate this. I worked all my life, got all these riches and everything, and I'm going to leave it for some fool to enjoy. And which brings up a point. Which brings up something. There's another verse I want to get at down there. Verse 19. And who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool? Who's he talking about? The one that comes after him. His son, Rehoboam, turned out to be a fool. Yet shall he have rule over my labor, which I labor. He's going to live in my house. He's going to sit on my couch that I paid money for. He's going to ride my horses, King Solomon said. He's going to eat out of my fields, and he might be a fool. What good's it going to do me? That brings up several things. Number one, it brings up, most of the time, when there's a real spiritual dad, the son is not a chip off the old block. Many times the son is a great disappointment. A lot of preachers think, I'm going to raise my son up to take over and do this great work when I'm gone. And the son turns out to be a flop and a half. Once in a while, there's an exception to that. Ralph Sexton Jr. is a good exception to that. Ralph Sexton Jr. has kept it going. He's probably even went higher than his daddy ever did. His daddy was a great man. But most of the time, when a guy's son comes up, he's a wimp where his daddy really stood. And the reason for that is because daddy worked for it and slaved for it and went the hard way. That son grew up being petted all his life, being around church people all his life, never been out and got his head knocked off a few times and don't know how to appreciate it. And that's why a lot of times they say Bob Jones Sr. was a lot different than Bob Jones Jr. and Bob Jones III and the fourth and however many they are. A whole lot different. Bob Jones University ain't what it was back in the early days. Man, old Bob Jones Sr., boy, he'd stomp a floor and bang, you're going to hell when you die like. They don't preach like that down there now. Every generation seems like gets a little more slack. And a lot of times guys have it handed to them on a silver platter and they don't know. Well, we all know that. Don't you know you appreciate something more if you have to work for it? And you want me to know what's wrong with our generation? Here's what's wrong with our generation. Our parents, mine and yours and grandparents, had it hard. I mean, they had it real hard. They worked like dogs. Nearly, my mom said she remembered when her daddy had come to Morgan from up on Jonas Ridge and come and it'd snow and he wouldn't be back for days trying to get flour and supplies and stuff. We don't even know such stuff as that now. They said they had cut part of the porch up and everything and thrown it in the fireplace to keep cut joists out of the floor and everything to keep from freezing to death. And so what they done, they grew up and the Industrial Revolution hit and the factories and everything started springing up. And you know what our father said? My kid ain't going to have to do like I did. I'm going to make sure they don't, and they ruined us. They handed everything to our generation and the generation, my kids' generation, and that's why we don't appreciate nothing. Never had to work for it. Listen, I've got a lot on my mind with that building over there. It's really getting to me here lately. I mean, y'all know I'm under a burden for that thing. Right now is a critical time for the next 7 or 8 weeks, and But I'm telling you what, when we get in there and I see it and I feel the Spirit move, I'm going to appreciate it a whole lot more than if we just hired a big company to come in and do a turnkey job. I wish we could have done that, but we'll appreciate it more if we work for it. Amen? And that's what he's saying. Who had their hand raised? Yep. Yeah, we are. They don't. Mom said when she was little, I know y'all probably don't believe this. I don't know if I believe it. They said when they was little, they got an orange and apple in their stocking, and that's what they got for Christmas. That's it. That wasn't just their stocking. That's all they got. An orange and an apple. Now we say, kids, do you want an apple? Shoot, no. Give me a candy bar. We don't even think that's a prize no more. You have to make kids eat an orange. Buddy, times have really changed. Who else had their hand raised? There's nothing wrong with. I've tried to be good to my. I've always tried to be good to my girls because they're girls. You know, girls, you got to do more for us. I mean, take care of them like more than you do an old sorry boy. But I always thought, well, they're girls. I took care of their cars. Made sure everything was took care for them and stuff that boys would normally do. I do. And maybe some people say, well, he's been too good to them. Maybe I have. But I feel sort of sorry for girls. And I always told Carrie when she was little, I said, Carrie, everything that we're having to suffer and everything we're having to go through and everything, the phone calls we get, and I mean, she's heard people say bad stuff about her family in Marion. I mean, she's had to sit in the doctor's office and listen to them talk about me like I was a dog. And I said, everything you go through, I'm going to make it up to you somehow or another. I told her that when she was real little. And I tried to do that. Maybe it wasn't good for them. But I tell you one thing, you better be careful. I think this, and some of y'all might need to hear this. I don't know who in here has what. But I think instead of leaving everything you've got to your kids, when you make your will, you need to put something in there for the Lord's work. I mean that. I believe that. All your kids are going to do is fight over it and waste it because they don't appreciate it. I'm not saying it's wrong to leave your kids something, but I'm saying you ought to do something for God in your will. We had a guy at New Manna. I said that one night while I was preaching, and buddy, he took it serious. He told me, he said, in my will, my house is going to New Manna Baptist Church, house and land. And his wife died with cancer, and sure enough, well, he's still alive. But I prayed for him to die for years, and he never has. But he'll probably live to the rapture. No, I'm just kidding. But when he dies, his house will be deeded to the church. You said, I just think that's awful. A person ought to take care of their family. I think the kids ought to have to work for it just like we did. Now, if I have anything to leave, I'll split it up with my girls probably and give them something. But I think we ought to leave something to the Lord's work. Do something that's going to last for eternity. You don't know what your kids might waste it. Solomon said he might be a fool, and he was. Rehoboam was Solomon's son, and old Rehoboam's the one that went and asked counsel at the young men. You remember that story? They said, if you'll listen to these old men, they'll help you. But he wouldn't listen. He went to them young men, and they said, tell them, bless God, your little finger be thicker than your father's loins. And you come down hard on them. The old men said, now take it easy here, son. If you'll love them people and be nice to you, they'll follow you. But the young men said, no, sir, bless God, preach against long hair, bobbed hair, bossy wives, short dresses. And he listened to the young men and got too mean, and Solomon said, he's a fool. He's a fool. Anybody? I brought up all kind of stuff there. Anybody want to say something? If you don't have any kids and want to put me in your will, I can give you my full name. It's Keith. My middle name is Keith. All right. Anybody? No. Don't put me in there. Put Shining Light Baptist Church in there. Leave us about 2,000 acres on the mountain. That's right.
It's a shock altogether to read there because you think, wow, man, one thing I got, I can leave your kids.
Yeah, right.
That's not at all happening.
That's right. He said, therefore, verse 20, I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor I took under the sun. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom and in knowledge and in equity. Yet to a man that hath not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. This also is vanity and a great evil. For what hath man of all his labor, and of the vexation of his heart, wherein he hath labored under the sun? For all his days are sorrows, and his travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. That's what I was talking about laying awake at night. I woke up at about 3:30 this morning, and I didn't know what time it was. And I looked at the clock and it said, I think it was like 15 to 4, and it hit me. I started thinking about the parking lot's going to cost this much, and we're going to owe this much to that guy. And I couldn't go back to sleep. I was tore up this morning. And then I read this today. I said, I'm a fool. I worry. There ain't no use in worrying about it. Amen? Worrying about it ain't going to put a penny in the bank. But sometimes you're just that way. That's just the way this old. I was thinking, oh Lord, what if this don't? What if the bank don't? That's happening. What if I should have said, shut up, devil, I'm going to sleep. But Lord don't torment you like that. God don't torment you. But here's where I feel. I feel like I've stuck my neck out, and God, it all falls on me. All the responsibility for this building stuff falls on me. And something bad happens, we're in trouble. And I feel like I'm just stuck my hand out over the Red Sea saying, part! If it don't, I'm going to look mighty stupid. But that's a tremendous responsibility. We could. Oh, I know what you're talking about. I know what you mean. Paving the parking lot. Be hard to do without one. We're all going to walk. You park up the next exit at 106 and walk to the new church. The only problem with that parking lot not being paved is it sure would mess up our new carpet. What, Brother Lloyd? Yeah, there you go. That'd be cool, wouldn't it? Yeah, just line up down through there. An emergency lane. Whew. That'd be a blessing, wouldn't it? All right. Have you ever woke up in the middle of the night and can't go back to sleep? I remember when I was going through real bad times and everything, I dreaded going to sleep because I thought, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to lay here about 2 hours, and I'm going to wake up and it just starts gnawing at you. Starts gnawing. If you're ever really worried about something, or you're going through problems, or you got to go to court or something, or you got to go to the doctor and that something, it'll get on your nerves, man. You'll have no rest in the night. I'm telling you, it's rough. It's rough. Look at verse 24, and we'll read these last couple and we'll finish this. I'm sorry taking so long. There is nothing better for a man, if you really want to think about it, just like the people I was talking about up in Spruce Pine, than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul to enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw, that it was from the hand of God. So really, the best off you can be is enjoy what you've got. Be content with what you've got. You'll never be happy always wanting this, wanting that, and wishing you had that, and wishing you was over there, and wanting this, wanting that. Be happy with what you've got. Eat, drink, and be merry, brother. And that's the best you can do. For who can eat? Well, buddy, I know most people can. Who can eat? Or who else can hasten hereunto more than I? For God giveth to a man that is good in his sight wisdom and knowledge and joy. And here he starts thinking a little more straight, Solomon does, a little more eternally. But to the sinner he giveth travail to gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. This also is vanity and vexation of spirit. There he goes again. All right, we'll stop right there. Now you ain't going to believe next week. Look at verse 1 of the next chapter. It's going to be good next week. To everything there is a season. There's your scripture to back up anything you've ever heard of or ever want to do or anything. And we're going to talk about planting by the moon, full moon, how to plant your crops and stuff like that right out there next week. Okay? Anybody got any questions?